Hello, and welcome back to Season 2, Episode 135 of Paranormal NL Podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pocket Cast, and YouTube. I'm your host, Jen. For tonight's show, let's give a big shout out to the Paranormal NL Podcast Alumni Network member who recommended tonight's guest. A big shout out to Paranormal NL Podcast Alumni Network member, Kat Ward from Paranormal Heart Podcast. Kat was on P&L Podcast Season 2, Episode 18, and I later was on her podcast show, January 2024, on her Episode 113. So make sure you follow Kat Ward. Now it's time to pull up your cozy chair and listen into your favorite podcast, Paranormal NL Podcast. It's a place where the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada, and anywhere else in the world can share their paranormal experiences. P&L Podcast also believes in supporting people, places, and things to promote paranormal tourism and paranormal networking all over the world. A big thank you again to all the P&L Podcast alumni guests from Season 1 and 2, and of course our fans. We want to hear your stories. Do you have any paranormal, metaphysical, UFO, cryptid creature, folklore, historical, books, or just tales of the weird you'd like to share as a guest on my P&L Podcast? Please reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or Gmail at paranormal.nl.podcast@gmail.com. And remember, again, after your episodes, you'll become part of the Paranormal NL Podcast Network. Make sure you click on that bell, like, and subscribe to follow along on whatever platform you're listening in on to get updates for new episodes. And head on over to Facebook and join our group, the Paranormal NL Podcast Bog Team Group. It's the official place to hang out in a fun, safe space and find upcoming new P&L Podcast episodes in the featured section of the group. We have a new branch of Paranormal NL Podcast with the P&L Bog Team. It's a boots-on-the-ground paranormal investigation team doing local historic investigations in Newfoundland. Our fans asked us, and Paranormal NL Podcast and the P&L Bog Team merch are now available on TeePublic with P&L official logos designed by P&L Podcast Alumni Network member Robert Dumont. And Robert Dumont was on Season 1, Episode 28 with his Devil's Toy Box, a 2-part episode. Check that out. We also have other Paranormal NL Podcast logos designed by alumni members Kyle Callahan Photography from Season 2, Episode 30, and Jason Lassiter from Get That Ghost Tennessee, Season 2, Episode 29. You can customize your apparel with all kinds of favorite P&L logos like you asked for, and seasonal fashion colors that you wanted, with mugs, pillows, buttons, stickers, posters, and more. Now let's get on with the show with that good stuff. I'm going to bring on the stage here tonight, coming in from Southwest Washington State, I have with me Miss Holly from Holly's Pandorium Paranormal Podcast. Welcome, Holly.
Hello, Jen, and hello, listeners and viewers. I'm so glad to be back here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, welcome back, Holly. You were on previously Season 2, Episode 56, back when I was still doing the radio podcast. So It's nice to see you right in video.
Yes,
so tell me what's been happening with Holly's Pandorium since then.
Tons of stuff. I am a psychic medium. I have been my whole life. And so I do a lot of things in the paranormal just by default, I guess. I like to share with people that, people say they experience the paranormal and then they become a believer, which is normal. That's how it works for most people. I never really had a choice. I experienced ghosts as a child, and just several different incidences. I just had it in my face, kind of. So I didn't really not believe ever because it was so real to me growing up and still is. And so I do readings for people, and I was just kind of sharing with you offline, which I thought was kind of fascinating. For some reason, in the last 6 months, I guess, during this year, seances have become a really big conversation around here. And I'm so excited for several reasons. One, I found out a couple of years ago that my great-grandfather did seances in the 20s and 30s in Chicago, Illinois. And it was a weekly thing, and apparently he had a following, and that's bizarre
I
and
love
amazing.
the
And
adult seance, Holly.
right. And he was a lawyer by day and
Okay,
then did seances on Thursday nights, which
okay.
just boggles the mind. It's so funny. Um, but myself, I started doing,
Everybody's gotta have a hobby, right?
right. So I started doing seances about 7 years ago. And up until then, my only experience with a seance was, like the movie Ghost and what happened in that and just other types of things like that. I really didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what was involved with a seance and what was supposed to happen or what could happen. And I have to say, it's interesting to me that so many people are fine to talk about a seance, but they freak out when you talk about a Ouija board because they're both
Well,
accessing ghosts and specific ghosts and
true.
aiming it to find contact with the afterlife. So I'd love for viewers and listeners to check in, and I'd love to hear feedback from people on what do you think the difference is between doing a seance or using a Ouija board, and do you think there is a difference, and if you do, what do you think that is? I would
I
love to
think
hear
the
feedback on that.
difference is people I just, think that people think that with the Ouija board, it's more evil, and you might get more dark or negative spirits.
Right.
But when you think about it, you can also get benevolent come through. But I also see and hear people doing it themselves. That I think could be a little dangerous if you don't know how to close the veil,
Right.
leave it open.
Yeah. Well, and genuinely, if anyone's ever experienced a ghost, typically you're not always thinking about a ghost. You're doing your regular human thing, and poof, there's a ghost in your life in one
Right,
form or another. In a new house, or someone passes over in your family and they come and visit you one last time. I mean, there's all kinds of incidences where people have a one-on-one experience with a spirit.
right.
But
Remember though, with a seance though, it's not just, lighting the candles and all that. I mean, it's okay if you leave the candles on, but it's with intention. If you
right,
say goodbye and you say, "We're done now, goodbye, thank you very much," and if you get up and walk away and the candles are still going, well, that's fine. I mean, you
right,
don't have to blow them out, but, some people think, "Oh my god, the candles aren't out." Like, that's okay because we already told them goodbye,
right.
and told
Yes,
them to go back to the cemetery, and you're not welcoming me or
right,
in to follow me home or in my car or in my house or
right,
my pets or family. So
right.
that it's really important. I talked with a person recently, Teal Gray, and she made me think about something I never thought about, which is the vehicle and your equipment. And not only cleansing yourself and whoever was there with you, but your shoes, your equipment, your car.
Everything, everything. That's something that Al Santarega and I have talked about, and that was one of the first things he told me when I started looking into doing actual ghost team investigations. That was one of the first things he said is always flush and clear your equipment before and after. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's brilliant because everything is exposed. Everything has energy.
Right.
Any camera, any device, whether it's your phone, whether it's just an audio recorder, anything that has electricity in it can be affected by energy from a spirit.
And that goes the same thing for podcasting. I have my, Sage.
Nice.
And I try to do it before and after. I know my husband doesn't like it because he doesn't like the smell of it, but,
Right, right.
there's other things that you could do which, we talked about, also with different people where you can, use, put items in a spray, like holy water, or it doesn't even have to be holy water. It could be, like, herbs and different things, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I do that too. I have to do candles and I do have incenses and sage and I never remember the name of it. What's the stuff that's I know somebody's going to know this right away.
Now, while you're looking for that, another thing, during the seance, what you can do is also put oil on the back of your neck because they say that's where they tend to enter through the
Oh,
back of your neck, right? And I was talking with, I think Patty Negri, I want to say, with um, the Hollywood Good Witch.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you might know her from Ghost Adventures. I had her on, and Patty's awesome, and she has a Magicus place where you can go and learn a lot of different stuff. But I mean, everybody's got a lot of different things. Tell me, I know you said you're a psychic medium. I'm trying to remember now. Tell me about your clairs.
Oh, okay. Um, I actually, my first experience with clairs, I was very, very young. And so I didn't know that that was a thing. My mom actually had to tell me I was psychic when I was a teenager. I didn't know what that was. I had no idea. And so, my first real prominent clairs were seeing and hearing both.
Seeing and hearing. Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
so later in life, I developed being able to smell things and even taste things, which is really incredible. Um, and the seeing ahead in time and seeing back in time is something that I'm also
Do
really,
you dream it and then experience it, or
it's
do
usually when
you?
I'm awake. I do have
Okay.
some prophetic dreams,
Mhm.
but when I'm doing a reading for someone per se, um, I do readings off of different things. I do kinetic readings. Like for years, I did, I'd hold someone's house key or a ring or a necklace. I held a
Right.
sock one time. I've held business cards, pens, um, comb, hairbrush, an article of clothing, a scarf, a sweater from someone that's passed on, or just someone that's sitting in front of me that says, "Hey, would you read me?" It's helped sometimes if you're learning to just hold an object because everything retains energy.
Right.
But after doing it for most of my life, I just really need to focus on someone and I get stuff.
Yeah, you've been, kinda honing your skills, right? And you mentioned that all this came about when you were a young teenager, and,
Yeah,
it is said that I did an episode with Joel Stern where we talked about, a poltergeist that was true, documented event. He translated from Polish, The Elusive Force. I did the collab with Joe DeHoyos in Texas, Beyond the Woodline, and
right.
the interesting thing about it was her age. She was of that age, and a lot of the scientists, because there were multiple scientists involved with the study of it and the phenomenon, and that goes back, I guess, to the old theory of puberty being, especially for females with the hormones and stuff, maybe kicks up something.
I totally believe in that. I totally do. And I think because um, there's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Amen in California that is a psychiatrist or psychologist, and he's been studying the human brain for many generations and has done a lot of scans of them. And
Right.
he's the one that actually did a brain scan of the Jersey psychic and showed that while she was in a state of doing a reading for someone, the front of her brain, which is the conscious part that gives us cognitive thought and speech, was shut off. There were no lights.
Interesting.
And
Hmm.
so when she was actually doing her psychic reading, it was all towards the back of the brain. And in particular, the pineal gland in the top center of the brain was very brightly lit up.
It
There's,
was? Okay.
yeah, so there's
Okay.
a very significant amount of documentation that talks about the pineal gland being directly related to psychic ability. That's why a lot of psychics, when you talk to them, will tell you that they believe, as do I, that
The
everyone
third eye. Hmm.
can do it.
Right.
Everyone, because I do believe it's physical. I don't think it's just you're just born with it. Like some people are writers and some people are not. I think psychic stuff genuinely is in our DNA. I really, really do.
Well, it's kinda like riding a bike, right? If you don't use it, you lose it kinda thing. So, like, when they say you get older, oh, they say the pineal gland shrinks up. Well, maybe it might, but if you were to do a lot more of mindfulness and meditation, I think meditation is key for that. I talk to a lot of different people about CE5s and remote viewing and things like that, and they talk an awful lot about the kind of state of mind you're in and how you need to get your brain waves into a certain type of meditative state. And I think that a lot of us have forgotten to do that because we're too caught up in the rat race of
Yes.
work, right?
Yes. And I think a lot of the distraction too that we get because our world is so noisy. I was really thinking about it the other day and talking with a friend of mine that's a psychic, and we both agreed that in the era that we grew up in, because we're both in our 60s, we grew up with a lot of quiet.
Right.
In the homes that we grew up in as children, there was one phone on the wall in the kitchen, and there was no answering machine,
No.
and there was no voicemail. And so there was kind of this unspoken rule: you never called anybody's house during the dinner hour. So like between 6 and 8, the phone would not ring unless it was a dire emergency. And you just kind of knew if you called someone's house and it rang and rang and rang and they didn't answer, you didn't panic. You realized they were either gone or busy doing something, and you just tried again later. There was a lot more calmness about communication, and we've switched that to be instantaneous communication.
Right. Like you can't even go on a lunch break or go on vacation without your
No,
boss texting you,
right.
or 20,000 people, hey, what are you doing? It's like, oh my
Well,
God.
and not even that, it's the 24-hour exposure. We
Right.
used to spend
The
time
screen
getting
time.
home from work, and
Mhm.
we had that private family time for 8 hours. We might have television, but television was 3 channels, and it shut off at midnight.
Right.
There was this
Yeah.
very cool screen that would pop up and go, and that was it.
Go
If
to
you wanted
bed
to take
screen.
it
Yeah.
home,
Yeah.
it was a book or board games or go to sleep. There was a lot more quiet 40
Yes.
years ago, 50 years ago. So
Mhm.
I feel that that's very accurate what you're saying, that the pineal gland shrinking makes complete sense to me, because we don't give it a chance.
Right.
We as children are very receptive, and it's very common for children to see things in the spirit realm, a pet that's passed on or a relative. It's very common. There's a really charming and precious video I saw on Facebook not too long ago of a little boy. He's maybe 10 or 11 months old, and he's just starting to talk. He's a baby, and he's got his little onesie pajama on, and he's waddling through the hallway, and he stops in the bathroom and goes like this, and he's looking at the ceiling, and his mom says, he does this every night. And she says, who are you waving at? He says, the guy. Good night. And he just, like, it's no big deal. There's somebody on the ceiling. And so she pans her phone camera to the ceiling. There's nothing there.
Hmm.
But he's very sure there's somebody on the ceiling in the bathroom, and he's friends with them, and he waves good night. He thinks nothing of it, that he
I
can.
would love to put an SLS on the ceiling and see what's in there.
Right? Yeah, it's like, what is that? But I mean, going back to, children are receptive, they're born with this, and I believe that it comes from the same thing that we all have about a sense of danger. And
Mhm.
not to connect paranormal with danger, but just to say that I think that our awareness was very strong when we were living meal to meal, hunting and gathering and so on. Our sense of awareness was very high out of a necessity to protect ourselves and stay alive.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we've gotten away from, where we have these very predictable lives in the sense that we lock our doors. We have this privacy in our home to a degree that, nothing's going to break through the door. There's no giant dinosaur that's going to eat the front of our house open and gobble us for a Scooby snack. We've got some safeguards built into our busy lives. But yeah, so I think I'd love to see more people practice the mindfulness. And for anyone that doesn't realize what are we talking about when we say that, it's literally just quieting down. Does your mind shut off and is there total silence? No. That's the biggest misnomer. It takes a long time for most people to get their brain to shut off enough to have quiet. And some people like myself, I don't know about you, Jen, but I love to hear brown noise or white noise, or, the ocean or rain.
I prefer the ocean. Love the ocean. On days that the ocean is really rough, I can actually hear it from my house.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I
That's
mean, I'll go in a room and sit down, and I'll have the TV off, and I'll be working, and my husband will come in like, "What are you doing? How come you don't have the TV on?" I'm like, I'm just being, right? Like you don't always have to have the TV on. You can read a
Right.
book. You can
But
do
isn't
other
it
stuff,
funny that
right?
it's like part of our family? We're so
Hmm.
used to that noise.
Right. Yeah.
We're
Having it in
so
the
used to
background.
that noise. Yeah,
So
it's
I got a
just people
question for you.
talking.
I'm going to completely change gears,
Oh, go
and
for
I'm
it.
going to ask you, what is your take on the difference of an empath and a sensitive?
I love this question. I'm so glad you asked. I really am. I'm so glad you asked. So for a long time, I didn't know that there was a difference. I really didn't think of there being a difference. But I read an explanation that made the most sense to me, and we'll see if you think you agree with this one or not. So I was reading this article, and it said a sensitive is classified as somebody, male or female, who is aware of others' emotions easily. So they can walk in a room and they, without speaking to anyone, can get a sense of anguish or frustration or joy or, whatever, good or bad, and everything in between. They feel what others feel. And they sense it not by words, but by, of course, observing body language and
Right.
just instinct. It's like part of, and it's right
Intuition, kind of
there.
thing.
If someone feels sick to their stomach, your stomach starts to hurt. It's this bond. It's like they don't just think about it, they feel it. That a sensitive actually feels what's near them. So they're kind of like a walking sponge. So a lot of people, when they discover they're sensitive, will say things like, I woke up great this morning and now I'm just so mad and I don't know why. That's one of the signs that you're picking up on stuff around you. You're getting in touch with other feelings that aren't yours. And it might be someone that's physical that you are in touch with, or it could be an energy from beyond, from a spirit that's near you that's having a feeling and you're picking up on it.
Okay.
It can be either one. Now,
Yeah.
someone who's empathic, that's like the next sandwich on the sandwich menu. So, an empathic individual is somebody who frequently is going to get the sense that they're thinking about somebody and that person calls them. Or they call someone and that person says, I was just thinking about you. How odd. Or you're sitting down at a restaurant and you're reading the menu, and for no reason, all of a sudden, you have this almost audible feeling of the chicken nacho sounds great. And you're looking at breakfast stuff. Where did that come from? And it's the person sitting in front of you that was thinking that.
Interesting.
And so it's almost like a drop thought in your mind. You don't hear it from your ears. It's like somebody is standing over your brain and they drop this little marble of information and it's pew in your head and suddenly it's just there. And it's not you, but where did that come from?
Yeah.
So there's almost like this wave, a little radio frequency that you start to pick up on.
Kind of tune it in.
Yeah. And so you're not eavesdropping. And I love this about empaths and sensitive. There's a sense of obligation in two directions. One of them is don't say anything to the person you're around because you don't want to expose their feelings without their permission. And the other thing is the doubt. I didn't really hear that. I don't really know what that is. And then that knowing, wait a minute, yes, I did. There's a constant battle, no matter how long you've been sensitive or empathic. It is so common and so normal for anybody watching this. Please know you're so normal. If you have a feeling that you're picking up on stuff, but you don't want to admit it to yourself and you're just, no, I didn't. No, I can't. And it's all no, no, no. Yeah, you did. But you can't deny that you saw something or you can't deny that you felt something that you weren't thinking about before.
Yeah, it's good to know for different people because I know I've talked to some people and they're not quite sure what they are. They have something, some kind of a gift or ability, but they don't know what it is and can't put it into words.
Well, and I've noticed I'm so glad you brought this up, honestly, Jen, because I've heard so many people say, well, I'm not psychic at all. but this, and then they give me this grocery list of stuff that happens all the time. And I'm like, it's okay to say that word. It's okay.
Well,
It's
you know, a lot of people don't want to use that because they think, oh, you're from the nut farm or something,
there's a
right?
there's
That's
a
that
stigma
stigma with
with
the
it.
paranormal stuff, right? You can't go talking about that to a normal person. They're like, what? What are they talking
Well,
about? They're
because of the
nuts. Have you been
stigma.
drinking? No. You know?
Right. But see, that's what hopefully we will help to dispel with this generation. The generation right before mine was called the silent generation. And they didn't talk about most things that were serious. And if you heard a ghost story, it was done on Halloween Eve to scare you or a camping trip. It was not common or accepted to talk about you saw ET, you heard Bigfoot or saw Bigfoot,
Right. That
you
was
had a
all
ghost in
taboo,
your
right?
house. You just didn't
Yeah.
talk about it. It
Right.
it was not done. And if you heard of someone that was talking about it regularly, they were going to the funny farm. They were going to get a free trip to a padded room vacation. And
Yeah.
so
With a
it
free
was,
white jacket. Yeah.
yes. And
Yeah.
so our generation has made a giant leap. And to
Hmm.
me, we're leaping backwards going forwards because generations skipping back a couple, it was common to always in a village, in a township, in a city, and even in neighborhoods, there was always somebody that was a seer,
Hmm.
a seer. All these terminologies have shifted.
Oracles, seers, right?
They heard, they
Shamans.
saw, they
How many
knew.
years back you go for
Oh my goodness.
different
Oh my
cultures?
goodness.
Every culture has that
Yes.
type of
Every
thing, right?
single culture,
Yeah.
Asian culture, Slavic culture, everybody, every continent, every single continent in every area has
Mhm.
that going on. They have that connection with somebody that had a gift or multiple gifts that helped them with their love life, that helped them with their business choices, and family relationships,
And very
anything.
high level people used to use them. These are like emperors would use them and,
Yes.
high level people would have them.
So now here's the other thing that I love that I'm going to caveat really quick. So for anybody that watches Amazon Prime television or movies on demand, there is a movie I highly, highly recommend for anyone that's curious. It's called Third Eye Spies. Third Eye Spies on Amazon. Third Eye Spies is a documentary type of program that discusses programs in the Soviet Union and the United States that were used in the 60s and 70s for remote viewers.
MK Ultra.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so, for people that have any doubt in their minds that psychics could or could not be real, take a look at this and
Our
you may,
government used them, right? I
yeah,
had an episode with Tony Rodriguez talking about remote viewing and
yeah,
CE5, and I've had lots of other people on. It's a thing. It's not just some hoax. No, we did it. Our government did
yeah.
it.
And that's
And, recently Skinwalker Ranch, they had somebody come on and do it there, and they found a lot of different things there. So, I mean, it is a thing, and I know people think, "Oh, you gotta be nuts," but, the only problem with that was they were using, psychedelics to get their brain into that mode that it needed to be in. But now you don't have to do that. You can use, like we said, mindfulness and things like that to meditate. There's other ways besides using those things.
right. But that, and what's interesting that I have to say, so Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein both had theories and philosophies about time and how time operates, previous time, our history, current time we live in, and future time. And so there's philosophies in science that they run perpendicular to each other, they're all parallel. So in that, if that's true, then it would totally make sense to do remote viewing in real time somewhere else from where you're at, or seeing into the future or seeing into the past. Because
Right.
if time does run sequentially, past, current, and future, if it's all running at the same pace at the same time, okay, then yeah, why shouldn't you be able to access it? These are very far out ideas, And for those of you that are listening, going, this was more than I planned on listening to with my popcorn tonight. Surprise!
We're getting into a little bit of physics here for you folks who like that kind of STEM stuff.
Right.
You're
It's
getting some glitches too, since we're talking about that. Interesting.
of course.
You're in
Of
a
course.
time warp.
I
With
see
your
that.
new hair, I'm loving the new hair you're rocking. Yeah. For
Yeah.
everybody listening, I want you to tell folks where to find you and how to tune into you. I'm just gonna peek over here and throw your YouTube up there. There
Thank
you
you.
are. Do you want me to play a little wee bit of it?
No,
Or?
that's okay. That's okay. So I am on Spotify and YouTube, and I'm also on a local rock and roll radio station. And you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram under Holly's Pandorium or Holly Jordan, just like the river, Jordan, psychic medium on Facebook. I do readings for people, and you can book an appointment with me. And for anyone who's curious, no, I don't charge.
And you do remote readings, correct?
Mhm.
I was
I
just going to
have
ask you that. I couldn't
I
remember.
have clients all over the world. I have been doing. I am an actual, and I never say this publicly. I guess I should. I'm an international psychic. I've actually done psychic readings for people all over the world, and
Nice.
it's just something I've just done.
Have
It's
you done it on
part
a podcast before? Like
my
what you're doing?
podcast. My podcast is only a year old, but yeah, I haven't done that. I just do readings individually with people. But
Okay.
I'm
'Cause I was
thinking
going to
about
say you
doing.
want to play around and do a little bit.
Actually, that's something
We,
I have to get ready for to get started. And I don't
we,
use tarot cards or anything like that. I just have to get in a mindset to do it. And it would probably take more time. But we can plan one if you would like. I'd be happy to do that.
that'd be fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be neat. Or we can just do it off air. Because
Mhm.
you never know what might come forward, right?
Well, that's the thing. You might want to be able to edit it. just saying. You never know.
Just saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, folks, follow Holly Jordan, Holly's Pandorium, Psychic Medium. Yes, the Pacific Northwest Psychic Medium. So, and also check her out on the previous episode, season 2, episode 56 of Paranormal NL podcast. So, thank you so much, Holly, for being on the show
Of
tonight.
course.
We're going to peace out soon and do a quick off air chat. I'll let you wrap up and say goodbye to your fans.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen, so much for having me back on the podcast. It's always a pleasure to see you and get to visit. And I
Yes.
forgot that the first time we were just listening to each other. This is the first time we got to see each other live.
Yes, yeah. We were doing the radio show last time.
That's
So
right.
it's a bit of a treat to be able to see
It
you.
is, isn't it? It's kind of
It
fun.
is. Yeah. You get to
Absolutely. So
read the
thank
body
you so
language and all
much.
that good stuff too, right?
Right?
So, yeah. So everybody follow Holly, and I hope you have a safe and happy Halloween.
Yes. And don't forget to click the like button for Jen, guys. It only takes a second.
Do the same for Holly. Peace out.